for joining us. Please join us in this conversation by sending messages through WhatsApp to 0809 That is our WhatsApp number. On Twitter,
We're at Smooth981 FM. Use the hashtag freshlypressed981. Good news, we're streaming live on YouTube, so you can actually join the conversation and be a part of what's happening in the studio. You can send your messages through live chat options. YouTube, search for Smooth981 FM. And then we're also on our app. So if you're at home and you're not in your car going to work and you want to listen to us, you can download the app through your app store or also from your Google Play Store, and that is Smooth 981 FM.
all right. Joining us this morning to analyze these stories, we welcome Devo Okorie at Devo Okorie. Good morning.
Good morning, Lagos. Cool. Eid Mubarak.
Mr. G Quest is Bolaho is joining us as well. Good morning.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning,
Good morning.
Valentine.
Good
And
morning.
good morning, Lagos.
Adedumade, how are you feeling this morning?
Great.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. We'll take you through these stories. We have 9 stories to go through, so please pay attention to watch us on YouTube. Leave us a comment and feel free to send in your questions if you have any or your observations on these stories to 0809 on WhatsApp. Now let's just take the first most important story as we're all shaking from 82 billion naira funds that we're anticipating should be repatriated into the country. But it seems that the countries involved are looking for a way to distribute these funds. Now, what is the major issue? Reactions trail the fresh Abacha loot has been seized as the UK has weighed in on this matter. The bank account containing 211 million pounds, approximately 82 billion naira, has been traced to a former Nigerian military dictator, General Sani Abacha. The money was recovered and subsequently confiscated in Jersey, not New Jersey in the US, but this one a part of the Channel Islands, as under the jurisdiction of the United Kingdom. And these funds were found and investigated and discovered on the request of the United States government. But take us through this story, especially examining the ways that they plan to share this money. Who is going to be affected? How is the money going to get down back to this country?
Well, yes. I mean, several years later, after General Sani Abacha died, he died in June 1998, and we are still finding out that monies are being recovered from different accounts many years later. I mean, our
21 years
past
later.
head of state is the gift. Is just that gift that keeps on giving non-stop. We're just receiving money. It's as if he knew that Nigeria was going to get to this point where we needed the money, and so he had actually decided to keep that money on our behalf
So
for us.
saving on behalf
So
of
he
the
was
nation.
saving on behalf of the nation, allegedly. Well, I mean, this issue started in 2014, where the United States of America sent an instruction to United Kingdom for this sum to be confiscated. I mean, just as you mentioned, this is money that is being kept in Jersey. It's one of those tax havens that we have around the world, and it's under the UK government or so. You have quite a lot of monies that cross that makes its way around that island anyway, and lots of safe havens. I remember quite a few years ago we had the Panama paper that was also released as well. This island was one of those islands that was mentioned. So as I said, it started in 2014, where the money was confiscated by the United States government.
No, it was confiscated by the
was
UK government
by
on the
the
request of the United States
of the
government.
United States government in 2014, and it was alleged that this company, by the name of Doraville Properties Corporation, were the owners or the custodians of this money. And in 2014, the Attorney General of Jersey gave the instruction for the confiscation, and that then took effect. In 2016, the company actually did appeal for this judgment. The appeal was refused. In 2017, they also went to the Court of Appeal, likewise, for the judgment to be rescinded. That didn't happen as well. The judgment was upheld. They now finally went in 2018 February to the ultimate appeal court in Jersey. That's the Privy Council for them to look into this matter, that the judgment was still upheld. So we're currently at this junction now where there is nothing this company can do in recovering that money. The money is definitely being confiscated now by the UK government. But we're now at the point where we have to decide, or the country has to decide how to share this money. And sharing this money is actually between Jersey, the United States government, and Nigeria.
That's right.
And the question that people are now asking is, if these were proceeds of crime, why would the US government, why would the UK government want to share this money with the Nigerian government? A lot of people have, I mean, this money should have actually been used to serve the good of the Nigerian citizens. But here we are, many years later, the money is actually being decided how they're going to share the money. And the problem.
Okay, let's
Yes.
so examining the relations between these three countries that are involved in the funds per se. We understand that the United States government, in terms of investigation and discovery of these funds, had a role to play and effectively found out that these said sums existed, were in existence, were real. So we wouldn't have had an idea that we had such funds
Yes.
in the coffers of the Jersey government as part of the UK.
Yep.
And that's UK having the oversight functions over the Jersey
Yes,
itself
yes.
provides for, would I say, superior authority over the institution that holds these
Yes,
funds,
they do.
right?
Yeah, they do.
And then Nigeria, of course, we know that this is where the funds come from. So when you look at this relationship, the different functions played by each party,
Yes.
how would you say? Would you definitely rule out the possibility of either party having a stake in the said funds?
Well, I mean, haven't they already had a stake in the said funds already? This money has been lying idle in a bank. I mean, you cannot tell me that the money is not being utilized by the banks for, lending out money to parties and interest generated
but
on
what I'm
those
saying
funds.
is, if the United States government did not carry out the investigation to discover these funds, we wouldn't have known.
I understand that, but you would expect that the United States, yes, of course we wouldn't have known, and that's an indictment on the Nigerian government on its own. But you would expect the United States to play a big brother role in ensuring that monies are repatriated back to the right parties that have lost that opportunity of utilizing those funds to better the lots of their citizens. I mean, how much is $211 million?
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money to Nigeria, especially when we're talking in context of how much the United States is worth, and we're talking in context of the United Kingdom. I mean, we have lost so much, and it's expected that all of this money should be returned to the right country, and it should be used judiciously.
Well, I'd like to ask a question at Diale, or echo this question from Diale in Aja. Diale says, are we under neo-colonialism? Why should Britain and the US determine how to distribute Abacha's loot?
It's
They
unfortunate.
should be telling us the value of interest the loot has made while in Jersey's bank over the past 20 years. I don't believe it's just 211 million pounds. A number of people have spoken about this, that it's 20 years. We cannot imagine the amount of interest on
Absolutely.
that money.
That's
So are we
accrued
talking
over
about
time.
that?
And
Yes.
I mean, the article actually says that the funds, the confiscated funds, would be used to pay for a variety of projects on the island. A variety of projects on the island.
No, that was the plan.
That's the plan. Yes.
That was the plan.
Well, they're still
And
talking.
It can't happen like that.
They're still
now,
talking.
Now that we know.
Just a quick one, yeah. How many other people are saving money on Nigeria's behalf? I think that's what we need to find out now.
Exactly. So how do we broaden the net? And it just really speaks to the importance of encouraging the relationships, international relationships between countries.
Yes.
If the United States did not have any vested interest or did not have the interest of Nigeria at heart, however lightly we want to take that, there will be no reason to divulge this information or just make it available to the Nigerian government.
Yeah, probably
Pessimism, yes?
the United States wanted something and they said, you
before.
know what, we'll give you the 211 million.
Good. Let's take some messages. Now, Oma Chigozie says, I thought someone once said or speculated that Abacha didn't commit a crime. How can we explain all these things about Abacha loot? Nigeria and insincere leaders are inseparable. I guess he's making reference to the same allusions that PDP made. They said that Buhari once described Abacha as a saint, but they wonder how he feels about this now.
But
Alright.
is he not still saintly? From heaven, money just comes
Right.
to fund our
Our
budget.
budget. Kenwa Chuku says very quickly, we're still recovering funds stolen by Abacha when oil was selling for $20 per barrel. Only God knows how much was stolen when oil was selling for $120 per barrel. And we're producing 2.1 million barrels per day.
Wow. Next story from this day newspaper. Buhari, Federal Capital Territory residents voted against me, but I won't threaten them. That's the headline from this day story. So essentially, uh, the vice president Yemi Osinbajo led a group of people to pay homage, Salah homage to President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday at the presidential villa. And the president was cracking jokes. I found some humorous, but he described the FCT delegation, especially regarding Senator Philip Aduda. I said, your constituency did not vote for me. They voted for the other party. But I like that you're sitting far away from me. But I just will assure you that I'm not going to work against you, but work in your favor. Your thoughts on this, Deo?
Well, the president, in his usual candor and humor, which we've come to know him by, and it seems as if he's more lighthearted in this
These
second
days.
next level. But I wonder why. However, he did commend the vice president on his role within the government and how government would be shaking without him there. While he passed the jokes on the FCT high-powered constituency that did not vote for him. And if you remember the vote count, FCT stood solidly against the president. And then people expected even Lagos to have the same position, but it wasn't so. But I think that's because he lives within the FCT, and one way or the other, they were not okay with how he carried business out. And I think it's a learning point. However, in saying that he wouldn't take it out on them, let us look at the precedents because anytime the president jokes, there's no smoke without fire. Um, last in the last dispensation, 4 years, there was a concept of the 5%, and the 5% were basically those who voted against him in coming into power. And many of the 5%, I think, was associated with people from the southeast and the south, of which they feared that they would not get federal attention because of that reason. We can argue that don't expect any federal appointments, although some would say that that's why the federal character principle is there to ensure the balance. But at the end of the day, it's still politics that we're playing. Most politicians would first favor those who supported them before they begin to think outside. It takes great leadership, and let me repeat myself, it takes great vision and leadership to be able to create a government of inclusion, or for the lack of a better word, national um, unity. Now, it's also an opportunity for the Buhari administration, especially Buhari himself, to actually disprove the apprehension around his aura that, oh, he's going to punish us or he's going to neglect us simply because we didn't vote for him.
Yeah.
Now, because national spread also does not just include the dividends, but it leaves a legacy not just for the person in the administration, but for the party. So the president should not be thinking just about himself as to let me deal with those who were against me. There is a party position that needs to be extended. You make it easier for the party to get back in if you've also brought in those who were not with you during the electing parts.
All right. Thank you very much, Divo. Didimadi, I'll come very quickly to you to look at this story. Court summons Bajabe Amila for alleged perjury, and there's a report from this day newspaper. Ahead of Tuesday's inauguration of the National Assembly election of principal officers, there's a new twist that occurred in the House as a major contender for the office of the Speaker. He's garnered a lot of support in the past weeks. He was contending for the position of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Bajabe Amila. He's been dragged to court for allegedly lying under oath. Tell us how this happened and what the possible implications could be.
Okay, great. So the allegations is that in his Annex Form CF001, that he did not disclose that he had been previously convicted by a court in the United States. Now, these allegations generally are not new, over the years and over different dispensations, they have come to light, especially during the Jonathan period. You know that it also came up during that time. Now, Bajabia Mila generally, and I must just say out of full disclosure that I really like the guy. He has not shied away from the allegations, and he has always responded to them over the years. Now, his position has always been that one, when he was leaving Georgia, he did not run away, as some people would like to say. But what he did was he said he left a forwarded address with the bar there. And when he came to Nigeria, these allegations were not brought to his notice until sometime in 2005. And when he got the letter, he went back there to ask what was going on. Now, apparently, the story goes that this money he put in trust of an employee who he called a paralegal, and he asked that person to disburse the funds. Apparently, it was that paralegal that did not disburse the funds, and he went back, said he tried to find the person, he could not find the person, and because of that, he had to pay the money back. So he did pay the money back, and he also had to accept some form of responsibility because he didn't want to shy away from it. And because of accepting that responsibility, he was suspended by the bar. Now, the thing is, the bar is not a court. And what they're saying here is that he lied, that he has not been convicted by a court. Now, he has not been convicted by a court, really. What he was suspended by the bar. And the bar generally is not a court of competent jurisdiction.
Private
So,
association.
sorry?
Private association.
Great. So what he's practically going to do, I'm sure he's going to overcome this the way he has done in the past, you know. And he also wrote about it in his book.
Yeah.
I think somewhere on page 28 or 29.
Okay.
Just to set the record
I mean,
straight.
yeah, he is.
I'm a fan.
Clearly.
Full disclosure.
But let's look at more other pertinent matters now.
Yeah.
Seeing that he's been gathering support for running for the position of the Speaker of the House. Do you think, or how do you think this would affect his chances, if any,
I don't think they're going to affect his chances.
at all?
It affected him last time. There is a Game of Thrones at play
But it didn't just start now.
within the House of Assembly. Just like last time when he almost won, at the last minute there was a musical chair shifting of positions, and Dogara was elected. So keep having faith. Let's
Thank
see
you.
whether
Thank you.
Because he's been in the House for close to 11 years now. Right?
yes,
Yeah.
a
One of
good
the oldest,
man.
yeah.
But however, in politics, you can't never guarantee yourself tomorrow.
Yes.
All right. Thank
Tomorrow
you.
is a long
Thank you,
time,
gentlemen. Very quickly, I'll come back to you, Devo, for this story from Premium Times. Why Buhari attended the OIC meeting. And this raised a lot of speculations, asking why is our president going for meetings held, constituted by a religious group? It's the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. We do understand that the president is inclined, not just him, former President Yaradua and also Goodluck Jonathan attended this meeting of this group. You just, among other things, to seek for financial support to the country in certain matters. But take us through this story.
Yeah, I think Nigeria joined the OIC during the military era
Yeah.
because of some of our Islamic presidents or dictators then.
Head of state.
Yes, head of states. Well, are they still not dictators?
Okay.
But however, I think Nigeria also as a nation, whilst we are looking for moments of inclusion, we have to get past our different religious phobias, because behind our religious phobia and acrimony is very bad charactered human beings, right? Because by the time you look at the breakdown of the reasons why we pick our fights, there's nothing behind it. And in this case, Ohanese can raise issues as to why Nigeria is part of an Islamic organization. Yes, the OIC is an association of member countries that protect the Islamic faith. However, in my many travels, and I have to say this at this point,
Yes.
what I realized was that the Islamic way of life and interpretation differs outside than it is within the country. Same with Christianity and others. We seem to fight here, whereas others religions bring peace. In other Islamic nations, I mean, you live dandy, and then when you come here, we're killing ourselves. Now, the what do you call him? The media representative, that Garba Shehu, took time to break down the subject matters of what the president went for.
Mhm.
Now, it cut across almost, it was like a UN general meeting agenda, cut across discussions on anti-terrorism,
Yeah.
and where the OIC member nations decided to synergize with Nigeria, especially at the Lake Chad
Basin.
recharging because of its economic benefit to the member nations around there.
Yeah.
That's Niger, Chad, Nigeria, Cameroon. Secondly, they spoke about the reduction of poverty and hunger, and where the OIC had a fund, Solidarity Fund, which addresses food security, rural development, and agriculture. Thirdly, they spoke about economic assistance, and they also have the Islamic Development Bank, where it discussed about helping less privileged OIC countries.
Yeah.
Spoke about promotion of environmental education in terms of health, science, and technology. Then the social-cultural aspects, where it discussed the film festival and women development. Now, you see, these are all things that if you take the religion out of it, we need them.
Yes.
So what are we talking about? Second, we also have a National Assembly. The fear of the Islamization of Nigeria cannot happen while our eyes are open. So I think those who are apprehensive need to hold their National Assembly members accountable.
Yeah.
The president cannot wake up and veto our nation into some form that they're afraid of.
Yeah.
Let's get real with our fears, confront them so that we can start addressing the many issues, because we need as much help as possible. And if help is coming from your neighbor next door,
Yeah.
whether he dresses in pink, blue, or white, please receive it and move on.
Objectivity. Thank you, Divo.
Thank you very much, Divo. Prince here, just to clarify what you're talking about. Nigeria joined OIC during Gowon era as an observer status. Babangida registered us. The OIC told us to regularize our membership status. Now, GEJ got money from OIC for development during his era, so it's important to note these things. Nikki here says the Abacha loot should be likened to Chief Ibori's loot. The loot of the latter was repatriated, and the Nigerian government denied Delta State of having access to it. We should commend the United States for using her resources to carry out investigation, leading to the honest discovery of the loot. The country would do more if a share of it is given back to her. Imagine us begging for our own money. I think it's quite sad. Let's move on to our next story here, and I'll come to you. Kano Anti-Graft Agency recommends Sanusi suspension. Well, you take the story, please, from the Guardian newspaper. It seems like all is not yet settled for the Emir of Kano, as they're calling for a suspension following alleged corruption under his belt. Can you please take us through the story?
Well, yes, this investigation has been going on by the Kano State Public Complaint and Anti-Corruption Commission, and they finally came up with their report. And under those reports, there were 4 sections under the report. One of them was the indictment, the amount that was involved, and also mention of obstruction of investigation, and finally the recommendation. Well, the amount that has allegedly been misappropriated by the Emir of Kano, that's Alhaji Muhammad Sanusi II, is 3.4 billion. And this misappropriation, naira, this misappropriation
Alleged.
was allegedly to have taken place between 2014 and 2017. Apparently, it's been mentioned that 1.4 billion was spent fraudulently, and another 1.9 billion was also spent on the Emir's personal matters. This is not the first time that we'll be having allegations against the Emir. I mean, when he was the central bank governor, there were allegations that he also misappropriated, or he allegedly spent some monies doing some project in the northern part of Nigeria, which wasn't part of the CBN's work. So just as I've mentioned, there were 4 parts to it, and just as I've said, the monies that were misappropriated, they've also talked about the Emir also interfering with the investigations that was taking place, and finally was recommended that he should be suspended, and likewise other parties that were also involved in this corruption scandal should also be suspended likewise. Also, there were some projects that was financed under this 3.4 billion.
Yes.
It's been mentioned that those contracts should be revoked. The question I would like to point out is
Very quickly.
how independent these commissions or these panels that have carried out the investigation, because we all know that there's a tip-tap between the governor of the
Yes.
state and also
And
the
Premier
emir.
Kano,
They're
yes.
So-
coming for him.
Exactly. So how independent were they?
All right. Thank you very much, Bola. Diva, I'll come to you again. Fake news: Ghanaian authority pulls out of MOU with the China Railway Construction Corporation International Nigeria Limited on account of alleged breach of confidentiality. Straightforward story. Please just tell us what happened and why you have
Yes,
it in mind.
a lesson in business principles.
Yeah.
Well, basically, the Ghanaian counterparts pulled out of a non-binding MOU, which was actually referring to CCIC. That's sorry, CRCC. That's the China Railway Construction Company within Nigeria, trying to do something for the Ghanaian people in terms of helping them with the Trans-ECOWAS line.
Yes.
And they were angry that or grieved that some matters to this extent came out in the press, which had
Falsely reported.
Yes,
It wasn't
falsely
just that it
reported.
came out in the press.
yes, and the inaccuracies had to do with, first of all, there wasn't a deal. They were not meant to construct anything, so the numbers were completely false and far-fetched. Secondly, the terms of the agreement had to do with
Confidentiality.
Thank you. Now, you see, now this has to do with respect of terms. And they said basically what they were expecting was the CRC had shown an expression of interest, which they were interested in, to help them in their feasibility and the raising of funds for this railway project. And yet something came out that was far from the truth. So they've pulled out from it. And it's a lesson, like I mentioned. If we in the nation intend to have bilateral agreements with people, we must ensure that we honor those agreements as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Thank
for
you
their
very
success.
much, Divo. All right, Adedumade, I'll come to you for this next story. Salah, let's go to the Salah story where we
Yes,
talk about
rice
bank
and chicken.
Yeah, bank. No, this is not about rice and chicken. This is annoyance on a day that should be about rice and chicken. Bank customers decry poor network, insufficient funds in ATM daily times. I don't even without going through the details of this story, Adedumade. I don't know if you tried to use your card or tried to bank yesterday. It was a
Well,
horrible
yeah,
experience.
actually, I walked into the spa with a friend. We're trying to buy something, but after queuing, we got to the till, only to be told that none of the POSs were working. This is along like I think they had about 10 or 15
They
tills.
failed.
Yeah, so
And different banks too.
and we had to go and use a bank ATM outside. Now we had to use Wema Bank because that was the only one that was working in that particular area. And I would guess maybe because that bank doesn't have so much traffic, maybe even on their online banking doesn't have so much traffic. So maybe that's why they were still up and running. But it's actually very bad. I've had experiences with Nigerian banks, even before today, and I feel that there's a lot that the CBN needs to do. For instance, I remember one time when I came back from a trip and I needed to use, I'm gonna call this bank, it's my
please
bank.
don't.
Okay, great. And I went
the
into a bank to use my account, and it was so difficult. And I had to tell the bank guy that, look, I have an account in the UK, and it's easier for me to use that account standing in your bank than it is for me to use my account in your bank. So I think there are a lot of things that really needs to be
The
done.
reason I have to talk about this is because let's talk about connectivity, cashless policy. We want to go cashless, and it's almost difficult for you to go cashless because of the poor network that is available to make transactions either online or the bank's IT services. Why are we having such a problem? Why can't we get it right? That's the big question.
Well, maybe 5G will get here eventually, but that's not even the question now.
If the
because
system cannot work in 2G or 3G,
3G,
or
then
4G,
5G will not work.
I think
But
there's a
what
connectivity challenge, and
but-
NCC needs to be speaking.
Yes.
if
Because the banks are just one end of it.
Yeah.
Toll gates, for those who pass through the toll gate is
It's-
completely crashed.
If that is the
completely-
case, what I want them to do is at least let us have a report of what happened.
Yes.
The problem with Nigeria is nothing is going to be done. Nobody's going to ask a question. Everybody will just move on like, hey, the ATMs are back up today. You know, so
And we have this, sorry, just to point out, we have these challenges usually on a public holiday. So it's not just about Salah, but on a day where there's heavy traffic of using online platforms, it almost shuts down. Why is it so?
And understanding, sorry, just to weigh in,
go on.
understanding the fact that this bank ATMs make use of some connection with telcos, right? Shouldn't the telcos also have a share of the responsibility?
Yeah, that's
Oh, yeah,
what
that's
I'm
a-
saying.
and that's what he
NCC.
said about NCC.
sanctioning.
So I think, like I said, someone needs to tell us what happened,
Yes.
why it happened,
Yes.
and what they're going to do to ensure it doesn't happen again.
Should penalties be put in place?
If, according to reports, someone should be penalized,
Yeah.
then it should happen.
All right.
But Nigeria,
It's not an act
I'm
of
not
God.
going to express much.
Ultimately, it reverses the cashless policy. So
Yes.
what we now do when it comes to holidays, please hold your cash. You'll see people at
The banks
ATMs
are
withdrawing
full.
their
Withdraw-
full
people are
amounts,
withdrawing
etc.
money.
Mm.
All right, thank you so much. Just needed to touch on that, and I'll come to you, Bola, very quickly for the next one. Just a very short statement. Corrupt customs officers, smugglers killing local rice production, according to Vanguard reports.
Yes, it's unfortunate. I mean, the rice policy that the government has come up with, which were meant to be self-sufficient by 2020, according to the Minister of Information, apparently 60% of Nigerians actually consume rice that is locally made. I don't know how many of us in this room do consume rice
do
that
not.
is locally made.
I do.
Uh,
That's
so,
a stretch.
well, yeah,
You
we'll
find
just
it in
leave
the
it that way.
market.
But I mean, this report is an investigation that was carried out, and it indicts the customs of aiding and abetting the rice smuggling in Nigeria. It says that these customs also do collect bribes when it comes to rice smugglers into the country. So a lot needs to be done in ensuring that this is put to an end.
All right.
All right, Bingo sent us a message on WhatsApp. Thank you, Bolahon. Bingo says, ever since GJ, the hero of democracy, lost the elections, Johannes Ndigbo, Khan, and Afenifere have been very disgruntled and are stopping at nothing to cause division in the country by making inflammatory comments and unsubstantiated claims along ethnic and religious lines. Intelligent Nigerians take their comments with a pinch of salt. Thank you, Bengals. Tony Ayo says, the last Abacha loot was released by the Swiss government in Nigeria with the condition of using it for social investment program, of which the Buhari government did not let the UK government follow suit and release the money. Okay. All right. Thank you, Tony. Olatunbosu, send us final one.
Good morning. My Mr. President's philosophy of life is do me, I do you, God no go back. He might have jokingly called Abuja residents a necessary evil because they didn't vote for him. But what a man thinks, he speaks. Mr. President.
All right, we'll look into these stories extensively at 9 o'clock for Lagos Talks 981. Do join us then. But special thanks to our analysts who stepped in this morning in spite of the holidays.
Right.
Bola had Mr. G Quest, Adedumade at Adedumade, and Devo the Akuman at Devo Korea on Twitter. Next is sports inside of the locker room.
What's the 9 o'clock story?
The story.